Welcome to Life Unpacked with Mel Ryan and our new series, Life Bombs. I created this series because there's no person on earth who doesn't have an incredible story. The way your life has unfolded, from the family you were born into, to the choices you made, to every moment in between, all means something. When we revisit our story from a different perspective, the insight we gain into ourselves is profound. Across my years of working with people, I've watched life-changing shifts happen when someone finally understands the pattern they've been stuck in. When they move from self-sabotage, self-hatred and self-abandonment to being able to say, I love myself, I understand myself, and I've got me no matter what happens. Those are the moments that will always keep me doing this work. For generations, we've been taught to look after everyone else first and not ourselves. That belief has left so many of us stuck in lifelong patterns of self-abandonment. We don't know how to support ourselves through life until a life bomb happens. A moment that blows apart the version of life we thought we were going to have. The result leaves us confused, alone, and searching for answers. This series follows 9 real-life stories, and we're not afraid to go where the life bombs take us. We unpack end-of-life moments, abuse, addiction, affairs, miscarriage, death, grief, love, loss, and joy. These stories reflect the everyday emotions that every one of us will experience as we move through life. The conversations you'll hear are as unedited as possible, to honour the people telling them and to keep the authenticity of their journey. It also shows you what happens when you begin to unpack your own story. Every episode will likely bring an emotional response in you. Often the first emotion that rises isn't your truth. It's the do the right thing, the rules you were raised with, or the collective expectations we've all been taught. All I ask is this: remember that when we judge each other, no one can grow. When we share our experiences, we grow together. In this space, the ladder of judgment doesn't exist. Your experience is simply your experience, and it has so much to tell you about what you're working on. Holding a safe, compassionate space for people to share their stories is at the heart of Life Unpacked with Mel. I'm in awe of these incredible stories and of the people who trusted me to walk with them so that I can share their journeys with you and show you how to unpack your own life. I hope this inspires you to revisit your story with curiosity, compassion, and a gentleness that reminds you you've always had the answers within you. Episode 0 in this podcast series is a reflection by Mel on how and why this series came about. My new upcoming podcast series. It's been a long time coming, and I've been working on this over the last 18 months or so. It was really important for me to capture people's stories, but in lots of ways it's their perspective shift. So when we unpack life, we often look at life as in things happen to us, and it makes us really disconnected and really quite disillusioned with why things happen. And we talk about life bombs a lot, can be particularly the big versions of things that impact our life that we didn't see coming and that really affects us. And so for me in doing this series, it was really important because it actually shows people, anyone listening, how to not just look at your situation as it is, but then how to keep stepping out further and further to reframe it, to keep reframing it, to keep stepping out, to keep reframing. So we can potentially see from a different perspective why someone would go through that experience. So this is why it's called Unpacked, because we unpack some really powerful topics in this series. And this series is very heartfelt, emotional. It's real people going through some pretty traumatic and big life experiences. And so in being able to work with people, that I've worked with, so the first series is people I've worked with for quite a while. And the reason I did that is because it's a safe place for them to know that they can share their story, because they're on a lot of times a better structure of knowing how to support themselves emotionally through things. And I think that's evidence of something being so transitional and so powerful. So I think this is why I've started working with people that I've already worked with, and I've already seen a big shift in them because they recognize it and it's changed their life. And I think it's really important that giving people a skill or a tool to be able to reframe things and see things potentially from a different perspective is powerful. And we need that, particularly in life at the moment. So, describing the series in one sentence, an incredibly powerful series on unpacking true stories to view them from your soul's perspective. What makes these conversations different from typical trauma stories? Oh, so different. Because in a typical trauma story, we look at the blame, we look at victims, we look at, I can't believe this happened, we looked at how we survived something that was so awful. And so we tend to look at someone's experience and go, God, thank God it wasn't me going through that. Like, how would I get through that? And we look at people being incredible that they get through things just because they survived it. These stories are not just surviving it, but it's unpacking it to the point that you can make it okay that it's part of you, that you can find the trauma. And the more we understand the perspective from our soul of why that would be an experience in our life, the more the trauma softens into it just being an experience. Sometimes not a great experience, but it's an experience that we go through because we know that we're going to learn so much about ourselves from going through that. And so what we do is that instead of reframes that life happens to us, it becomes something that we can actually find a perspective where we can almost make sense of it. And I say almost because there's some things that are really difficult to do that, but we can hold the space for it being okay being part of our stories. And that's a very peaceful space because we've shifted it enough that we can get our takeaways of what we need to support ourselves differently for it. So this whole series becomes a beautiful way to connect with self-empowerment and self-awareness and self-learning and a perspective that we potentially wouldn't have before. So it's a really different series in lots of ways because there's a shift and you see that transformation and you see someone understanding it from a totally different perspective. And that's what I'm so excited to share with the world, because when you work this way, you can support yourself through anything. And that's the whole point of us being here. I call it magic space. Like it's a real powerful shift. These stories are so incredible. They're powerful, but they're incredibly difficult, like from death to attempted suicide to surviving how to support people with suicide to being able to have compassion for yourself, having an affair. There's a lot in this, from moving from being an alcoholic to knowing why we got to that point in our life to seeing how we support ourselves differently to living through sexual abuse and child abuse. And like we've touched on the big ones. These are big, big topics. And the audience that will be pulled in to listen to this, of course, is because we have similarities in how we feel in having such a big, horrendously awful situation that we've gone through, but not knowing how to process it or how we unpack it or how we even look at it from a perspective that would soften it. We just can't. We feel like life happens to us and we're stuck and it's not fair. And while there's a truth in that, of course, it also doesn't allow us to return the power to us. And so then instead of us supporting ourselves to experience life, the more traumatic the experience, the more we shut down and the more we push everyone away. And the more we limit our experiences in life because we're too scared. We have expectations that it's just going to be shit or something awful is going to happen or good things don't happen to me. And so when we live from there, it's not a safe place, but it's never going to be a safe place. And so we limit our experiences even more because we don't trust life. And so what we're doing is we're not unpacking this to go back into, I'm going to trust the universe, because again, the way I explain that, we're outside in. We live outside in. And so what I mean by that is when we're little, we're taught that someone's going to save us or someone's going to look after us. And I think what happens from that is we learn our spirituality the same way. So we learn that the universe is going to look after us. And so it's the same thing. It's like someone's going to come and rescue me. So the universe is going to come and rescue me. So if I didn't have people rescuing my life, now I'm hoping that some miraculous event is going to occur when, things just work out. And sometimes it does, and that's okay because it restores our faith in the universe. But what if it doesn't? And when it doesn't, what happens is we then get even more disillusioned because even the universe isn't on our side. And when the universe isn't on our side, again, we expect that only awful things are going to happen. And so we shut down even more. So these beautiful, powerful podcasts move it away from waiting for good things to happen or luck to happen. And we shift it into a different frame where we actually are looking at how we're connecting with our soul story. We're connecting with our higher self to get a perspective of understanding what we're working on, why we would go through this, what it means for us, how we reframe it in a way that we can know that it's okay being part of our story, so we can then move forward supporting ourselves. In a way, it's like the question, what do you need and how do I give that to myself, becomes real, because instead of us hanging out with someone that we hope fixes it or makes it better or we get lucky, we've now moved into, I've got me. No matter what I go through, I've got me. Now, if I know that for real, for absolute real, and when I say I've got me, it's not just me shoving things down to me, trusting my experiences are there because it's unfolding things in a way for me to understand myself better, for me to get all my takeaways, for me to know how to support myself differently, for me to have experiences where I'm going to learn something even deeper and more profound about me, that I can realize I'm learning to have a voice or have a boundary or stand up for myself or love myself or not be coerced by other people to not overgive or people please. I'm really learning to support myself in my own story, to particularly to disconnect from what other people think and to just come back to, I'm okay. I'm allowed to be me. I'm allowed to live from just being me. And so that space is why we're doing this podcast, because it's showing people the true reason why we go through things is to connect with our higher self, to be able to support ourselves, to see the big picture so our life makes sense, because our life is meant to make sense. And so this is why this series exists, because it's that introduction to, we've always wanted answers. We've been looking for answers our whole life, but we're looking to other people to give us the answers. So this series actually pulls us into, hey, the truth is I have the answers myself. My answers to my questions of my life and me and who I am is actually in me unpacking my story. And I'm meant to unpack my story, and I'm allowed to unpack my story. And from listening to these beautiful podcasts with some incredibly amazing people and their own life stories, it allows me to then want to not be afraid to look at my own story, but to do it from a really curious and self-compassionate perspective, where I don't judge myself. I don't compare myself to other people, but I come back to honoring my story all the way from when I was born, through everything that's happened to right now and who I am in my life. And that's why I am so proud and so excited to present these powerful podcasts to the world, because it's moving us into a way that we're not afraid to come back to us to unpack our own story, because your story being so unique to you is an absolute toolkit full of so much information for you to understand yourself better. So it stops us trying to chase answers and getting answers from everyone else. And it brings us back to the truth, to be able to go, I can actually get the answers for myself. It's really important for me to be able to look at my life from my own perspective and honor my truth of my journey of what I've been through, to work out what that means, to then be able to support myself in a way that nobody ever has been able to before. I think the beauty of this podcast, It's like, why is storytelling such a beautiful form of healing? The beauty of this podcast is because it introduces us into a way that if we're listening to other people's stories and we can see the shift in them and we see what they've moved to and what they're working on, it then means that we're going to allow ourselves to do the same thing. That's the shift. We're going to allow ourselves to go, hey, maybe that's part of my story, or that made sense to me, or this so resonated with how I felt before and I didn't know if it was just me. And so this is why I think it's so important. One of the interesting things that I've learned through doing kinesiology and working with people for over 30 years is because so many people come in here with obviously their own story, but similar experiences. And the thread of how they feel, even though they might have done a different experience to get there, for us is similar. We all have so many things that we don't know how to unpack. We all have so many things that have happened to us, so many experiences that we can't explain or we don't know why that happened. And the more that happens, the more defeated we feel, the more we feel like we're not cared about and we're not supported or loved or we're not special or important, the more, again, withdrawn we become from knowing that I'm safe and supported in life. Like, I've got me, someone's got me. And so why I think that this is so important is when we do storytelling, I'm going to start listening to a story, and unbeknownst to me, I'm actually trying to find myself in that story. That's why we love stories and books and TVs and movies. And not only is this just the story part of it, but it's real. This isn't reality TV, because in reality TV, it's the furthest thing from real because it's so scripted. This is 100% true to this person and what they've experienced. Real, honest, heartfelt, courageous, broken, traumatic experiences laid out for us to all be able to experience as we go through them. And they're emotional. A lot of them, you find yourself being taken on not just a listening journey, but an emotional journey and a real pull in your heart. And it's been an absolute privilege and an honor to do this series, but it's also been, heartfelt, and you connect so beautifully and empathetically with people's stories. The beautiful part for me is being able to then move through that shift that we've done into people taking their power back and people seeing it from a perspective where it makes sense, or they're better for it, or they know why they would go through it. And so that's a incredible opportunity and experience and shift to be able to witness in people. And that's my job. That's what I've done for so many years. And this is a way that you can share this with the world, because I'm really hoping that it makes more people be curious to unpack their own stories in a way that they return the power to themselves from being self-empowered and curious and self-aware and wanting to know more, because our stories are just so incredibly fascinating. I want people to know about their own stories and life bombs and things that happen to you. Your life bombs happen because your soul self is redirecting you in your life in a way that it wants to have you really be aware of this situation, because when we unpack it properly, it means something. There's a thread in there, there's a message in there. And so it's being able to really step out sometimes of the emotion, and sometimes you need support or time or space to do that because they can be pretty powerful. So you step out to be able to have a fresh perspective, to go, this didn't happen to me, it happened for me. And what would that possibly mean? And being able to hold the space that it happens for you, that can be tricky, but that's pretty amazing and pretty powerful. It happened for me to understand this about myself, learn this about myself, support myself differently, reframe something, not continue to give myself away, not to be able to get lost and not know who I am. So there's the space to find the reasons. And I think this is why these podcasts are so powerful, because it allows us to get some space in here to see how other people do it. And then it gives us an opportunity to even minusculely at the beginning do it for ourselves. If you're listening to this series, you're already curious about wanting to find out more about yourself or answers, or there's questions in your life that you haven't answered or things that you couldn't make sense of, or why your family does what they do or why you went through that experience. And we want to know that. Like we all want to know that. It's why we we search for answers in so many things without really ever getting the answers that resonate, or we find the peace that makes sense, that really settle into us. And so this will find you because your friends will tell you, you'll tell your friend, you'll be like, gosh, you've got to listen to this because there's a story that's similar to your life experience and it might help you unpack something. And so this is why it's such a beautiful opportunity to be able to do this. If this series could change one thing for listeners, what would it be? I love that, right? Listeners, this is the answer. It's that you're listening to yourself, your story, your journey so far, your everything that's happened. This is how we listen to ourselves, because when you can listen to yourself, and that's by understanding. So you have to listen to everything that's happened in every way for you, to then pull that apart to kind of make sense of it. And that's in the making sense. That's the self-understanding. And we do that in our own bubble. You can't have someone else's opinion in there because it makes us not be able to see the truth. We're just going to judge ourselves, or I'm going to look at me how I think you would think, or I'm going to have shame or guilt or disappointment, or I'm not going to let myself honor what that experience possibly could mean for me and why that would happen and why I would go through that. And so it's creating space to listen, and listening is very neutral. It's non-judgmental. It's letting the truth come up from where it needs to come up from. So wanting to listen to yourself, that's what I want. I want you to go, I want to unpack my story because I want to understand me that little bit better than I did before. That's a shift. That's what we want. More people to want to unpack who they are and why they do the things they do, and to see themselves through different eyes, which means we can hold self-compassion, which means we can love ourselves better. We can stop hating ourselves. We can make sense of all the things that we do, even the bad stuff that we don't like. There's a reason why we sabotage or we go through these experiences, or we make choices that we're then mad at ourselves for. We didn't do that because we want everyone to hate us. We did that because something else is going on. And so the whole series is to reframe things so we can really see it from a perspective where we can come back to wanting to explore ourselves without self-judgment, but with a curiosity and just wanting to see the truth of why we are who we are and do the things that we do, because we're literally a product of our experiences, and then we try to get the answers from outside. So the whole of our life story, we've just stopped listening to ourselves. Because we've stopped listening to ourselves, we then can't make sense of life and why things happen to us. And so then we just live in a way that we hope people like us, so we belong, because we're not holding the space for us to belong to ourselves. In these episodes, we have a beautiful woman that had a few weeks left to live. We spoke with her and her journey on, knowing that she was not going to be earthside for too much longer. We spoke to her sister. She has a twin sister. And so being a twin is such a different experience than just doing life by yourself. And so we spoke to her sister, but not just about her in her sister's story. We also unpacked her own life and what she's been through and how that both kind of correlated together in what they were learning and what they were doing. And that's really quite beautiful. In this series, we speak to a person that attempted suicide and the journey that she went through in that, and how trying to be able to support herself in that space. It's such an incredibly interesting story to listen to her perspective on what was happening for her. We also then speak to her mum. And so we listen to her mum's story, which is, again, a totally different perspective from the person that was not wanting to be here anymore. And so it's then, how do you support yourself as a mum in that? Because all your boundaries and everything go out the window. So it's really being able to see from her perspective of what she went through and how she had to reframe so much of her own thinking. We also speak to a recovered alcoholic. And in that beautiful story, it's about understanding that, of course, being sabotaging alcohol, it's like, but why? We don't wake up and just decide that we want to escape life. We get there. And we all get there in different ways, whether it be food, whether it be alcohol, whether it be drugs, whether it be exercise, whether it be gaming, whether it be toxic relationships. Like we all have things that we use to sabotage ourselves. And so it's listening to her story really helps us step back and review where we fit in choices that we make and why we do the things that we do from a very courageous and self-loving perspective. There's a really incredible story of somebody that has had an affair, and while that's going to be probably quite controversial to a lot of people because we have been brought up and been taught this is the stand that we have on people cheating. It's incredibly brave, and I'm so honored to share that space with someone that wanted to share this story with us, because when you reframe that again, to do that from self-compassionate eyes, it took a long time for us to get there because the world doesn't hold compassion for someone's story. And yet when cheating's involved, and yet we need to, because for me, particularly in working in that space to help people understand and love themselves, if we only hold that you have to have shame and guilt and not like that, we can never get to the bottom of things. In fact, we're just going to destroy ourselves because we now don't belong in the world. And that is almost like the key. By not belonging, it helps you then have to really step out and really come back to knowing and being able to support you, because at the beginning of that, you don't have people on your team. And so it's an absolute non-judgment, and there will be parts in that, because for someone to be so brave and share that, I really honor that. And it's holding the space to let us be able to do the things we do, to understand why we do them. And it comes from the whole collective of past experiences that allowed us to get here and make the choices that we make. And it's softening our self-judgment. And it's just being able to hold our truth. And our truth is very pure and it means a lot. And so that's a really powerful episode that I really encourage people to listen to with a real neutrality for that, and leave judgment behind while you're there. In another episode, we speak to a survivor of extensive child abuse and what they went through in their childhood. And I find the shifting from being in that real blame, victim-y, I can't believe this would happen. We can get there knowing that I don't want to try anymore because I'm so broken, to see the journey that this person's gone on in their self-love is an incredible story to be part of. And so I'm really honored to share that one. And the last one in this series, although we don't know the order yet they're going to drop, is about surviving a miscarriage and what that means emotionally and how we deal with that and how we deal with that as society. And so it's just heartfelt, beautiful, hard, difficult stories that people are experiencing that I'm going to share with the world, because people have allowed me to help them reframe things to the point that they do love it and can care and support themselves. And so in sharing this with people, it's to be, and there's some pretty big stories in here, it's to be able to really hold the space for people to do the same for them. Then no matter what choices you made or where your life has taken you, there's a reason why. And being able to step out to make sense of all of the things is something that is life-changing and very connecting and empowering. There is not one client that has not had an incredible story. So you might be sitting here thinking, well, my story is boring. Let me assure you, when we start to unpack your story and the experiences that you've had, how they stack in to make us be able to understand what your thread is. It means something. There's something going on for you. There's a pattern that we see. There's an emotional reoccurrence of things. There's a reason why the experiences happened, or we picked our families, or we picked our friends, or we do the careers that we do, or all of that. And being able to start to reframe and see it, I promise you, none of you are boring. In fact, we've never got to one person's story that we've unpacked that haven't looked back on their life and gone, oh my God, wow, I'm so smart. My life is so incredible. For me to be able to understand myself, I've never seen it like that. And so that's my invitation to you. This is where we're going, particularly next year. It's a very big self-supportive year. And so wanting to unpack your story and learning a little bit how to do that, this is where we begin, because it's a beautiful journey, this journey that we have in life. So that's what this whole series is about. So I really hope that you come along with me and enjoy it and learn from it and love it, because I'm super proud that my work has taken me into this direction, and I honor every single beautiful person that I've been able to do a podcast with. And I look forward to doing so many more podcasts with people. So if that's you want to unpack your story with me, send me a message. Absolutely would love to do that with you as well.
The next 30 seconds could change your life. If you want to take the next step to work with Mel, go to Mel Ryan 100% You on your Facebook or Instagram and direct message her the word work. From here, Mel's team will help direct you to what you need. You may want to explore at your own pace, or you might be ready to dive right in. No matter where you're at, Mel has the tools and programs in place to help you, support you. Mel Ryan, 100% You.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Life Unpacked with Mel Ryan. If someone in your life is going through their own life bomb, please share this episode with them. These stories may be exactly what they need to hear. Remember to follow or subscribe to the podcast so you never miss an episode. And if you feel called to unpack your own story with me, you're always welcome to reach out through my website or social media. Thank you for being part of this space. Be kind to yourself, be curious, and remember the answers you've been looking for have always been inside you. I'll see you at the next episode.